the interesting things that you brought up. And so one comment is I grew up. I mean, um, so my family came to the U.S., came to New York in the 70s, and there were Asians, but there were not I mean, aside from Chinatown, there were not like the Asian communities that we have now. Um, and especially the Korean community in New York didn't really flourish until like the 80s. That's when they all started coming, I think maybe the mid 80s or so. Um, and I didn't grow up in an Asian community. So my family lived in communities where we were, minority. So, and we were even a minority among other minorities. So like we spent a great deal of time in Washington Heights, or somebody might argue that's Inwood, but like we were right at the border, so technically we were in Washington Heights. And I like saying that because Washington Heights, I think, has more sort of traumatic flavor to it because it was the crack capital at one point.
Right. Oh, was it really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a claim to fame. Okay.
No, crack capital. Wow. Yeah, Washington Heights. Wow. Yeah.
Also being gentrified as a sidebar.
Yeah, it's being gentrified. So here's I know like Washington Heights, depending on what map you look at, sometimes they divide that up into like even smaller neighborhoods and they call this whatever. But there's a very clear divide, and Broadway was it. So west of Broadway, much nicer. East of Broadway, not nice.
That's so nice.
And we, at different times, we had lived on both sides. Yeah, so I have experienced both sides. But we were in the 190s though, so it's like, yeah. So, and I think 192 or 3, right around there, is where the Inwood border starts. So right where Fort Tryon Park starts, basically. And we were literally on that line at one point on the south side of that. So like, yeah, but anyway, that's at one point. But we moved around a few different places within Washington Heights. Anyway, so yeah, so like all the schools, and it wasn't until high school that, I was like maybe one of literally a handful of Asian and even fewer Korean kids in my school. In my grade, I think there were plenty of times when I was the only Korean. Yeah, that was true. Yeah, I was the only Korean, and maybe there was a Filipino and a Chinese kid, whatever. But so I think so going back to my earlier comment about having a strong sense of self, I think it's important because I never felt. I know you fear like, okay, how is he gonna fit in because it is so predominantly one culture or one color as opposed to him. But I was always that sort of outlier. And so I kind of claimed that for myself. And so growing up and to this day, I'm fine and even sort of relish the fact that I am the only whatever in whatever group I belong to. And I kind of like, sort of, I lean into that uniqueness. And very often people respond to how you carry yourself in that whatever uniqueness that you carry. So if you act like you're ashamed of it, or you feel like you want to hide it, yeah, that's sort of going to attract sort of negative elements. And kids being kids.
Right? Exactly. But I feel like boys being boys.
Right. Like, no, but it's true though. It's true. It's our natural inclination to like either fear or question or demean or something that's different. I don't understand, so I'm gonna poke fun at it. I'm gonna poke it. I'm gonna do different. But then there are there are those people who are unique but stand out in a very sort of like charismatic way, you know, that, oh, he's different, I'm curious, as opposed to, oh, I don't like him, you know? Yeah. So I think to some extent it depends on the individual as to like what you elicit, the kind of response that you elicit from other people around you.
And what allowed you to embrace, you said, or even like, be proud of being the only fill in the blank? What was it when you were younger in particular?
Because no one told me that was less than. And that's the problem I have with the stories that society tells, and even within groups tell ourselves, minority groups, you know. And this is why I don't like certain aspects of feminism. This is why I don't like certain aspects of you know, equity rhetoric, and even, you know, micro aggressions. There's an aspect of it where you put yourself in the victim's position. Like, why would you do that? Like, I never saw myself as a victim. I never saw myself as a less than. I did acknowledge I'm a minority, a statistical minority, but not a minority in value or anything else. But it also has, I think it also has something to do with the fact that I was born and grew up in my early childhood in a country where it is culturally and racially homogeneous. So there is no such thing as minority. There you have other distinctions, class, you know, you have class, you have education. Those are huge. Class and education are huge in the Korean culture. Like, where you went to school is a big thing. I mean, I was in elementary, so like you didn't really make that distinction back then. But like as an adult, like where you went to school, it's a big thing. It's kind of like in Britain, in England. Like Oxford or Cambridge, and like one looks down on the other. Like, who the fuck cares?
Neither.
Yeah. You know, so there are other distinctions like that, right? So yeah, so it's like, you know, one group looking down on another, discriminating against another. That behavior itself is universal. Now, what you discriminate against, that would be unique, depending on the culture you're looking at. So I did have, but that's the thing. It's like, I mean, so what if you're the only Black kid in a sea of white kids? You know, that's not what defines you. It is an aspect of you, but that's not what defines you. But anyway,
it's not what defines you, but it is, you know. So like, you know, looking back on it when I was younger, like I acknowledge the fact that no one else kind of looked like me. But honestly, unless I saw my hand like on my desk, I would kind of forget, like we were just a sea of students talking. But then there were moments though when I was reminded that I was different, be it in, you know, US history class when my stupid teacher turned to me to talk about slavery. What the fuck do I know about slavery? I wasn't there. Like, I know less than you. Like, just because of the color of my skin does not make me an expert. And like that feeling of being singled out, you know, like, so that like, I felt like I was jarred into my reality of my Blackness, which, you know, it was embarrassing to me. Like, it made me feel like I remember not wanting to make eye contact with people. It just made me feel less than. And so again, like I think for some, it may not be playing the victim card, but there are those moments when you are shaken into reality that like you are different from other people, or when someone would be like, oh, you got a different hairstyle? Oh, I wish my hair could do that. I don't know. That just kind of, I know they meant it as a compliment. Like, I know they weren't being negative in any way, shape, or form, but it was just another way of just making me feel different, right? And as a kid, like that feeling of being like the outsider or not feeling like you fit in, like, is a real thing. Now that didn't stop me and make me, you know, like you. Like, I was like, okay, like, let's go with it. Like, it doesn't, like, for me, doesn't matter whether you see me as a girl, because my school was an all-boys school that went co-ed my first year, or a Black girl. You know, my Latin class, I was the only Black girl in my class. And I relished that because I felt like, all right, I got this. And I was like one of the youngest ones in the class. So like, I felt like the queen of the world. And nothing could stop my confidence like in that space. But there were like little moments of it being like chipped away, etched away. Um, that again,
Yeah,
as a little first grader, I
but
just hope his armor, that I've given him some of the tools and the armor to be prepared to defend against that, or at least to acknowledge it, to not internalize it as much,
yes,
and hopefully bring it home so we can talk about it or talk about it with his teachers, or even say it. Like I admit I would never have the guts at his age to tell someone my age who said something that hurt my feelings. I wouldn't tell them that. Like I would just not say
mm,
anything, especially if they were like a cool kid. And I wasn't a cool kid because I was not a cool kid. I was a nerd. I would not say it, but I kept that in. Like I
yeah.
didn't share it with my mom. I didn't share it with anyone. I just hope that he would do that. Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Well, I mean, also like, I mean, your mother was an immigrant too, and so were
Mm-hmm.
my parents, and so there was very little that they could do in terms of helping me navigate this new world
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
they didn't know any better,
Right.
They knew less
Right.
than me, in fact. I mean, they
Right.
adapted like less,
Mm-hmm.
quickly than I did. And like I learned the language and the culture, much faster than
Right.
they did. So it's not, so I was ahead of them. I mean, the children,
Mm-hmm.
we were ahead of our parents in terms of adapting. So there's not really anything that they could have done to help us
Right.
navigate.
Right.
So like, yeah, so you were in a very similar boat, as that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think what I did with those little chipping away is I would take that and I would wear it as a badge. Okay, I'm different. Great. You know, I'm gonna accept my difference and I'm gonna flaunt. Well, I was never growing up. I was actually very shy.
Mm-hmm. Aww, I could see that.
Yeah, no, I was a total introvert. I was shy. Like I didn't know how to talk to people and all that stuff. But then I would
Me
also have
too.
I would have moments.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like it would take me a really long time to warm up to situations and warm up to like people and stuff. And um, but luckily, like there's always like one person, at any given time in my life when I could talk to, who I could
Yep.
talk to. Um, and that could change from week to week too, but whatever.
Right.
Yeah, so I was not like um there was a point I was gonna make. Yeah, but anyway, like I think over time I learned to kind of not let those things chip away at me, but sort of use that. Like, so I still remember very clearly in high school, um, I was not a nerd. I think I would describe myself more as a misfit.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Like, I don't really belong in any particular camp.
Mm-hmm.
And like I kind of like that because I saw that what I also saw growing up, particularly in junior high school and middle school, is the damaging effect that cliques had on the individual. That sort of group identity sort of overrode
Right. The individual.
the individual, and how that could also like the need to be accepted by your peers was so like almost desperate. And like and I saw that and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna be that. And so I was fine not belonging to any particular group, but also kind of like float around on the outskirts and just kind of, one toe in and just kind of like an outsider observing him, but at the same time, like not really, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah. 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 Fully committed to a group.
Yeah, no, but I did have some time.
Yeah.
In middle school, I didn't really have friends, but but other times I had friends. Um, but in high school, like a friend of mine and I, we were sharing a bus ride. I don't know whether I think we were going home in the same direction or something. And I was going on and on about something, and at one point she stopped me. She said, I wasn't called JJ back then, but anyway, she's like, JJ, you're so weird. And I just laughed out loud. And I
Aww.
took that as I mean, granted, it was a friend who said it, so she didn't mean to be mean.
Right, right.
But at the same time, she didn't mean it as a compliment.
Right.
But, but I took it as a compliment. And I'm like, okay. I mean, that's fine.